Hi guys, it's deeply concerning watching Northern Ireland tear itself apart. Asylum seekers and migrants are having their homes attacked by youths and young men. A darkness has descended on places like Ballymena, a town not far from Belfast, which is reminiscent of the 1970s. Families forced out of their homes under a rain of bricks and petrol bombs, while politicians point the finger and do nothing. There are a number of serious problems associated with this violence that goes beyond the racist thugs. A police service that stands by as individuals terrorise innocent people, politicians who try to play the anti-immigration card, and loyalist paramilitaries, while not engaging in the attacks themselves, sit on the sidelines and at best do nothing, and at worst egg on these individuals. But all of this is either unknown or conveniently forgotten by commentators in Great Britain who see this through a very narrow prism. Here Farage was attacked over his role in creating a fertile ground for the types of anti-immigration rhetoric and actions we've seen.
Kieran, you and I perhaps come from different political backgrounds in many ways, and I was very, very clear. I don't support thuggery, I never have in any way at all. But do you understand why they were going into the streets with kids in pyjamas?
I understand why. I understand how economic dislocation creates the conditions in which communities start to fall apart. And I also understand, and Nigel, this is difficult to say because I'm in your temple.
No,
you've been a welcoming host.
You say what you like here.
But your personal rhetoric over the past 20 years has massively contributed to the emergence of these kinds of scenes. It really, really has.
Do you know what? If they'd listened to me, none of this would have happened.
What did you say?
I said, be careful. Get immigration numbers substantially lower. Don't allow people who come illegally to stay. Make sure those that come are the type of people that will integrate in our communities. And I'm going to argue, Kieran, very strongly.
Fair enough, but I'm going to argue back. What have you said for the previous 20 years before that? I mean, we could mine a million quotes of you basically saying that too much immigration creates flare-ups in communities. And I think the more and more you say that, the more often you give cover to that kind of view.
Oh, I'm not giving cover to it.
More it creates...
I'm not giving cover to it.
Also, Nigel, just to say...
when the police basically say you're all far-right thugs, that misunderstands what's going on.
But let me just say one thing, Nigel. There's that element to it. I firmly believe that your rhetoric and the rhetoric of your parties over the years has contributed to this kind of thing, including the far-right riots last summer. But there's also another component to this, which we'll get onto.
Should we just ignore it? Forget about it?
No. Well, what we should do is we should try and acknowledge that there is inherent difficulty in coexistence, but also try and find socio-economic solutions to that, rather than constantly saying, these people are stealing your jobs, these people are causing the problems. Nigel, I just want to say that adjoins to the other point I want to make. There are economic measures that can be introduced in countries. Indeed, I noticed that Reform, your party, are actually adopting some of them lately, or saying that they adopt some of them, that improve the lives of individuals in communities who feel that they have nothing going for them. But you've supported Thatcherite politics your whole life.
Kieran, 40 years ago.
Much more recently.
You weren't even born.
No, but you've said you're a Thatcherite much more recently.
You talk about economic dislocation. Now, what has happened here is these two 14-year-olds...
Okay, I needed to respond to this because I think it's really important. You notice at the beginning of this clip, Farage talked about, well, I don't support thuggery, I don't support violence. Okay. Farage is very good at distancing himself. He's like the cast the stone and hide the hand. What I mean by that is, we saw it last year, where he was asking questions. I'm just asking questions. I'm not telling these people to go out and riot. I'm asking questions as, why is the police withholding information? Why are they not releasing this guy's name? Why isn't the Prime Minister getting involved? These are the types of questions we hear from right-wing commentators who want to sit back and allow others to go out and find answers to those questions. And then because they can't find those answers, well then maybe they need to take it up a notch. Farage is very good at distancing himself from the far right. The far right are not very clever people. They will come out and say, we hate foreigners, we want them all gone. Farage is not like that. He understands you have to be a bit more diplomatic. So he will not say foreigners are the problem. He will not even identify individual ethnic groups. He would not do that. He will just say immigration is a problem. Legal immigration and illegal immigration. And then he will say, well, we have all these people, as he said in this clip, people coming in who are not integrating. Now, I keep saying, integration is a two-way street. If I was there, I would have asked Nigel Farage, what have you done to help people integrate? Because remember, somebody coming into the country has to integrate. No one is disagreeing with that. It benefits the society that they're moving into, and it benefits the individual to integrate. But we as a society have to help people integrate. So what is Nigel Farage doing to help people integrate? Has he any examples? Because I have seen just the opposite. Demonizing people. Talking about how they're a problem, how they're a burden on the state, how they are a problem for the NHS, for schools, for everything, for every public service. All he says is how these people are a problem. When does he ever talk about how they're a benefit? When does he ever talk about how he has helped these people integrate? If he has helped them and he's failed, then it's either a problem with him or it's a problem with the individual for not integrating. But when has he last tried that? Now, when it comes to Northern Ireland, we're talking about two separate issues here. Northern Ireland and the rioting taking place in England. Because the one in Northern Ireland is not the type of racism that we're seeing in different parts of England. It's driven by a loss of control. There are loyalist paramilitaries in Northern Ireland who like to have things under their control. They see the local population is Protestant, is white, and then they can decide their future. But when Catholics come in, or when foreigners come in, and asylum seekers come in, then they see themselves losing control. I'm no longer in control of this turf. They're like mafia. They see themselves losing control, and then they say, well, we need to push back. Now, a lot of them cannot do it directly, so they rely on the far right. And the far right are always itching for a fight. So the loyalist paramilitaries will use the far right to push their own goals. Their goal, of course, of controlling communities. I talked about it recently where the police service of Northern Ireland were instructing asylum seekers to negotiate with loyalist paramilitaries, with literal terrorists, in order to move into a community, because the community was run by those loyalist paramilitaries. The police service of Northern Ireland were telling people to do. Can you think of any other police service in the rest of the UK? Can you imagine the Scottish police were telling people, you need to negotiate with the local mafia boss before you can move into this community? Or the police in England doing the same thing, and the police in Scotland, in Wales doing the same thing. It would be front page news. People will be up in arms over it. But in Northern Ireland, it's normal because the loyalist community is run by loyalist paramilitaries, and they decide who comes in and they decide who goes out. And if there's any disruption to that balance or that control, they will push back. And they have their tools, they have their pawns. This rioting that we're seeing in Ballymena is not grassroots. It's not orchestrated. It's not a group of people angry about immigration. The people who are angry about immigration are being used by the loyalist paramilitaries, by the people who are in charge. And they don't care about the consequences. And you have commentators in England, like Nigel Farage and others, who don't understand this or are pretending not to understand it. And I don't know which is worse. And their rhetoric is now being copied and pasted into Northern Ireland because it's useful. Asylum seekers are a problem. Asylum seekers are in the country illegally. Illegal migrants. All of this rhetoric is being copied in some senses from the United States to Great Britain, and then from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. And it needs to stop. It needs to be called out. Kieran here tried to call out Nigel Farage on his own show, and that's quite brave. But Farage knows that he just has to tap dance around some particular topics. He has to be careful with his rhetoric, and he'll be fine. And it has served him well over the last number of years. But he's not interested, it seems, in helping people integrate. Because in a sense, that would destroy his whole argument of, well, these people are a problem. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.